Usually when we think about human monuments, we immediately think about scale. We think about just sheer size.
Right, like the Great Pyramids, things like that.
Yeah, the pyramids at Giza or towering marble statues dominating a city square. The instinct, spanning basically all of recorded history, is that to remember someone, to truly honor the sheer weight of their existence,
Yeah.
we have to build something massive.
Something impossibly heavy.
Exactly. We want to physically alter the landscape so that nobody can ever ignore the fact that this person lived.
It is the architectural equivalent of shouting, really.
Yeah.
We want to carve their name into stone so deeply that time itself just can't erode it. It's a very natural human impulse, to fight mortality with mass. We look at a mountain and think, well, I want my memory to be like that.
Unmovable.
Unmovable, permanent.
Right. But then you look at the reality of modern remembrance, and suddenly that whole paradigm just flips entirely on its head.
It really does.
We're not looking at towering granite anymore. For today's deep dive, we are looking at something so small, so deceptively fragile, that it can literally slip between the pages of a paperback novel.
A simple 2x6-inch piece of cardstock.
Yes. And yet, this tiny piece of paper has quietly taken over the modern memorial industry. So today, we're jumping right into the psychology, the economics, and the surprising durability behind the memorial bookmark.
It's such a fascinating shift.
It really is. So welcome to the deep dive, everyone. We are going to unpack how this tiny sliver of paper has evolved into one of the most requested, most deeply cherished items for families who are navigating loss.
Because it represents a remarkable shift in how we actually process loss on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, let's unpack this. How does a bookmark end up holding so much emotional weight?
Well, if you look at traditional funeral ephemera like the bulky programs, the prayer cards, the heavy registry books, they belong strictly to the event.
Right, to the funeral itself.
Exactly. They exist for that specific Tuesday afternoon at the memorial service. When the service ends, those items are usually gathered up, put into a box somewhere.
And relegated to a closet for...
Pretty much. But the memorial bookmark does something completely different. It moves the conversation away from the event itself, and it carries it into the days, the months, and the years that follow.
It bridges the gap.
It bridges the gap between the public ceremony of mourning and the private, ongoing reality of grief.
Because on the surface, we are just talking about printed paper. But what we're really talking about is this concept of a dual purpose. Unlike a standard funeral brochure that you read once during a eulogy and then inevitably tuck away in some forgotten drawer, the bookmark actually has a job to do.
It demands to be used.
Right, it demands to be used.
Yes, and that brings us to a psychological concept we could call functional grief.
Functional grief, I like that phrase.
Yeah, because when we talk about mourning, we often conceptualize it as this paralyzing, overwhelming state, a period where time just stops.
But life inevitably keeps moving forward.
It has to. And the genius of the memorial bookmark, and why its practicality is so crucial, is that it integrates the memory of the person into an everyday, mundane action. Every time you open a book, a Bible, or a personal journal, you are interacting with that memory.
It serves a practical function.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which means you physically cannot just pack it away and forget about it.
I have to play devil's advocate here for a second, though. Isn't that a little jarring?
How do you mean?
Imagine you were sitting on the couch on a rainy Sunday. You're totally engrossed in this gripping, fast-paced sci-fi thriller, or maybe, a really lighthearted, trashy romance novel.
Right?
You go to save your page, and boom, you are suddenly confronted with a reminder of profound personal loss. To me, it feels like there's a difference between keeping a wedding invitation on the fridge versus using a commemorative coffee mug every single day. One is an archive, and the other is active.
That's a great distinction.
But is that active reminder always welcome when you're just trying to escape into a paperback?
Well, what's fascinating here is that the exact tension you're describing is what makes this object so effective.
Really?
Yeah. What actually happens is that this repeated, everyday interaction transforms the fundamental nature of the keepsake. It changes how the brain processes the memory of the loss.
Okay, walk me through that.
So, when a memory is stored away in an archive, like a box of photographs up in the attic, bringing it out is an event. It takes emotional preparation.
Oh, for sure. You have to brace yourself.
Exactly. If it's a memory of someone who passed away, opening that box can make a sudden, overwhelming flood of grief precisely because you haven't interacted with it in months or years. It's an emotional ambush.
Right. because you've segmented that part of your life off, and when you open the box, the dam breaks. It hits you all at once.
The brain hasn't practiced feeling that specific grief in small doses, but the bookmark operates on entirely different psychological territory. By integrating the face, the name, and the quote of the loved one into your daily routine, it normalizes their presence in your ongoing life.
It takes the memory out of that dusty storage box and makes it a companion.
Precisely. When you see it while reading your sci-fi novel, it doesn't trigger a collapse. It triggers a brief, warm acknowledgement. It's exposure therapy in a gentle, self-directed way.
It's like moving a heavy piece of furniture. If you try to lift the whole thing and carry it across the house all by yourself in one go, it is backbreaking. You might collapse under the weight.
That's a perfect analogy.
But if you just nudge it an inch every single day, integrating that small effort into your routine, it becomes manageable. The weight is the same, but your relationship to moving it changes. You are having your morning coffee, you open your book, and they are there with you.
It's functional.
It's functional,
Yeah.
but that brings up an obvious logistical issue. If this item is meant to be handled every single day, if it's going to be traveling in backpacks, left on nightstands, stuffed into coat pockets along with a dog-eared paperback, it has to be built to survive all of that friction.
It does. And this is where the physical architecture of the keepsake becomes incredibly important.
Form meeting function.
Exactly. The industry has had to adapt to this functional requirement. We aren't looking at standard printer paper here.
Oh, definitely not.
The standard now relies heavily on extreme durability. We're talking laminated finishes, heavy, high-quality cardstock, synthetic blends. They are explicitly engineered to withstand the oils from human hands, the friction of sliding between pages, and the general wear and tear of a lived-in environment.
Which makes sense practically, of course.
Yeah.
Nobody wants a flimsy bookmark that crumples the second you put it in a textbook.
Right, that would defeat the purpose.
But there is a deeper emotional layer here. I have to imagine there's a psychological reason these are laminated and protected beyond just avoiding coffee stains. If the physical item degrades, does it subconsciously trigger a fear that the memory itself is degrading?
You've hit on the exact psychological mechanism. In the context of grief, physical deterioration is deeply subconsciously painful.
Wow.
Think about what fading represents to the human mind. When we lose someone, our greatest immediate fear is that we will forget them.
That their voice will fade.
Yes. We are terrified that their voice will fade from our minds, that the exact shade of their eyes will blur, that the specific sound of their laugh will become inaccessible.
So when a physical keepsake, a photograph, or a poorly printed program, or a delicate piece of paper starts to yellow, crinkle, or literally fade away, it mirrors that internal fear.
It is a visual representation of time passing and stealing them away all over again.
That makes total sense. The fading of the paper feels almost like a betrayal of the memory. You are watching them disappear a second time.
Precisely. The human brain maps the physical integrity of the object to the emotional integrity of the memory. So when memorial producers emphasize the longevity achieved through lamination and premium cardstock, they aren't just talking about manufacturing specs.
It's not just a sales pitch.
No, not at all. That physical resilience mirrors the emotional resilience that families are desperately hoping to achieve. The durability is what allows the bookmark to become a lasting tribute.
The lamination acts as a protective barrier, not just for the ink, but for the psyche.
Exactly. It is a subconscious reassurance that this memory is safe, it is protected, it is not going to tear or fade away.
You know, I want to point out a really specific design choice that ties into this physical architecture too. The vertical layout.
Ah, yes.
It's usually a 2x6-inch vertical rectangle. Now, obviously, that is the shape of a standard bookmark because that is how books are bound.
Right.
But visually, it provides what designers call a clean and sophisticated canvas. And when you think about it, there's something almost structural about that verticality, like a pillar.
A vertical canvas commands a very specific type of attention. Historically, think of vertical monuments, obelisks, standing stones, totem poles.
Right, they draw the eye upward.
They stand in defiance of gravity. In a much smaller domestic sense, the vertical layout of a bookmark forces a specific kind of visual hierarchy, while it allows the human eye, which is trained to scan top to bottom when reading, to process the information sequentially. It usually allows for a portrait at the top, the face, the human connection, followed by a name, dates, and finally a grounding piece of text at the bottom.
So it's structurally sound, both physically and aesthetically. It guides the mourner through a micro-narrative every time they look at it.
Exactly.
But a durable, well-structured, blank vertical canvas, is just the beginning, right?
Right.
The real power, the thing that actually makes it a tribute rather than just a piece of laminated plastic, comes from how families choose to fill that space.
The personalization.
Yeah. How do you capture an entire human life on something that is 2 inches wide and 6 inches tall?
That is the ultimate challenge of personalization. It's an exercise in extreme distillation.
It's not just about slapping a name and a birth date on a piece of paper anymore.
No, families are tasked with including photos, dates, and most importantly, highly personalized text. This could be poetry, scriptures, a line from a favorite song, or meaningful quotes that capture the essence of the person.
And the memorial industry has shifted to allow deep customization of everything, right?
Mhm.
The color schemes, the typography, the imagery.
The goal is to aggressively avoid these items feeling generic.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. It's almost like trying to curate an entire museum exhibit of someone's life, but you only have 12 square inches to do it. Think about the immense pressure of that curation.
It's massive.
In a museum, you have rooms and rooms, plaques and audio guides to explain the nuances of a historical figure. Here you have to boil down their absolute essence. You have to find the one quote, the one image, the exact right font that screams Grandpa Joe or Aunt Sarah.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the psychological impact of those specific aesthetic choices is immense. It's not just biographical data being transmitted, it's emotional resonance.
Right.
Take typography, for example. If your loved one was a no-nonsense, highly organized accountant who loved modern architecture, choosing a clean, minimalist sans serif font honors that personality. But if they were a whimsical artist who loved gardening, a flowing, elegant script with organic curves makes much more sense.
Yeah.
When you combine those visual elements, maybe a specific shade of cerulean blue that was their favorite, or a subtle motif of pine trees because they loved the mountains, with a carefully chosen piece of text, you are creating a holistic tribute.
A holistic tribute, meaning it's not just a record of their death, but an evocation of their life.
Exactly. It's designed to resonate on an emotional, almost spiritual level. A generic card with a generic poem doesn't evoke the person, it just evokes the abstract concept of death.
Wow, yeah.
But a personalized, deeply considered bookmark bypasses the concept of death and brings the life that was lived directly to the forefront of the mind. The words chosen, surrounded by the right visual context, provide reassurance and hope. They act as a grounding mechanism.
I want to pause and ask you, the listener, to actually think about this for a second. Imagine you had to design your own right now.
That's a profound thought exercise.
Right. What would yours look like? What typography actually represents your personality? Are you a bold, straightforward block text? Or an intricate, looping cursive? What color palette defines your time on Earth? What single, solitary quote would you want tucked inside the books of everyone you love for the next 50 years?
It's a really intense thought experiment.
It is. It shows how deeply individualized this process has to be for it to actually work and feel authentic.
It does, and that individualization is why the industry has had to pivot so hard away from the one-size-fits-all approach. People don't want boilerplate mourning anymore. They will authenticity.
But let's look at the reality of the situation for a moment. Boiling down a complex human life into a small, perfectly balanced, beautiful design sounds incredibly daunting.
Extremely.
I mean, if you are planning a funeral, you are likely in the absolute depths of acute grief. You are running on maybe 2 hours of sleep. You are dealing with complex family dynamics, catering budgets, mortuary schedules, and a constant barrage of phone calls.
The stress is unimaginable.
Right. So how do grieving families actually manage this complex graphic design process without completely falling apart under the cognitive load?
That brings us directly to the role of structured templates. When we look at the mechanics of modern funeral planning, templates act as a vital cognitive shortcut.
A shortcut.
Yes. Grieving brains simply cannot process complex, multi-layered design decisions. In acute grief, the amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, is hyperactive.
Okay.
Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, which handles executive function and decision-making, is severely compromised.
So brain fog isn't just a metaphor. It's a biological reality.
Absolutely. Your brain literally cannot compute the difference between a half-inch margin and a quarter-inch margin.
Decision fatigue sets in rapidly.
Precisely. Choosing between placing a photo on the top or the bottom can feel like a life-or-death decision when your nervous system is overwhelmed. So templates aren't just a design tool here. They are a psychological buffer.
They remove the paralysis of the blank page.
Exactly. They offer prearranged layouts with balanced compositions and placeholders for photos and text.
I see the utility, definitely.
Yeah,
But I have to push back on the authenticity of it.
sure.
If the goal is this highly personalized, unique museum exhibit of a life that we just talked about, doesn't starting with a pre-made template counter that?
Yeah.
Doesn't it inherently make a deeply personal tribute feel a bit cookie cutter or mass-produced?
It's a valid concern, but we have to separate the structure from the substance. The templates offered by modern memorial providers don't dictate the content. They solve the technical mechanics.
Okay, I see.
They remove the friction of graphic design, figuring out bleed lines, balancing negative space, ensuring the text won't be cut off during the printing process. By eliminating that technical friction, the template actually frees the family to focus entirely on the personal, meaningful choices.
Ah, right. You aren't wasting your limited emotional energy trying to figure out how to center align a text box in a software program you've never used. You are spending that precious energy debating which photograph captures your loved one's smile the best, or which poem truly reflects their philosophy on life.
The template provides the boundaries so that your creativity and your mourning can happen safely within them. And this leads to a genuinely profound psychological phenomenon. The act of creating this memorial bookmark becomes a form of active healing.
Active healing. How does that work mechanically in the brain of someone who is grieving? Because usually we think of grief as something you just passively endure.
Well, when you are grieving, you often feel a complete, terrifying loss of control. The universe has taken someone from you and everything is happening to you.
Yeah, you're just along for the terrible ride.
Exactly. The schedule is dictated by the funeral home, the legalities are dictated by the state, but this small act of creation gives you a localized focal point of control. By taking charge of this manageable creative process, families are guided to reflect on the loved one's life in a structured way.
They have a task, a
Okay.
meaningful task.
Yeah. Yes. They have to sift through old photographs, which inherently brings up memories and stories. They have to read through quotes or scriptures, which brings up philosophical or spiritual reflections about what that person valued.
So it's not just busy work.
Not at all. This structured reflection provides a sense of purpose and closure. They aren't just enduring a loss, they are actively building a tribute.
Wow.
It's a form of meaning making, which psychologists will tell you is one of the most crucial steps in processing trauma. The template makes the building possible, but the act of building is the therapy itself.
It's active participation in the grieving process. You are doing something tangible, something beautiful for the person you lost, maybe for the last time. It's an act of service.
Beautifully put.
So let's recap what we have so far. We have this item. It's highly durable. It's deeply personalized. It's a therapeutic tool to create, and it's printed on premium materials. Usually when you string all those adjectives together in any industry, durable, custom, therapeutic, premium, you are building up to a massive exclusionary price tag. And funerals are already notoriously, sometimes cripplingly, expensive.
They are. The financial stress of end-of-life arrangements is a very real, very heavy burden on grieving families. It often compounds the grief with financial anxiety.
So what does this all mean for the bookmark?
Well, this is where the memorial bookmark really sets itself apart within the industry. It represents a democratization of memory. These keepsakes are highly affordable without sacrificing any of that premium quality we discussed.
That's surprisingly rare.
It is. Providers offer a sliding scale, from DIY templates that families can print at home or at a local print shop, to professionally printed, laminated options shipped directly to them. This flexibility fits virtually any budget.
That is a huge relief,
Yeah.
because it means we are looking at a highly accessible form of dignity. You don't need to take out a loan or drain a savings account to have a beautiful, lasting keepsake that honors your family member. I imagine it removes a lot of the guilt that people sometimes feel. There's this unspoken pressure that if you really loved someone, you have to buy the most expensive casket, the most elaborate floral arrangements, the grandest headstone. If you can't afford that, the guilt can be crushing.
Precisely. It proves that emotional significance is not tethered to financial expense. A bookmark is fundamentally inexpensive to produce compared to a large engraved plaque or a sprawling multi-page booklet.
But it doesn't feel cheap.
Right. Because of those premium templates and the focus on modern, clean design, they never look inexpensive. They maintain their dignity. And this economic accessibility ties directly into their versatility, which is another crucial evolution in how we mourn.
Versatility in what sense? Just that they can be used by anyone, regardless of income.
That, but more importantly, versatility in how we mourn. This raises an important question about shifting cultural norms. The cultural tone of mourning is fundamentally shifting right now.
Okay, for sure.
Historically, funerals in many Western cultures has been very rigid. Black clothes, solemn organ music, very standardized scripts, hushed voices. But modern bookmarks are perfectly suited to adapt to the expanding paradigm of grief.
They match the mood.
Yes, they are used for traditional solemn funerals, absolutely. But they're equally suited for modern celebrations of life, religious services, secular gatherings, or contemporary informal settings.
That is a fascinating cultural shift. We hear that phrase, celebration of life, so much more often now. People are pushing back against the heavy Victorian-style mourning.
They really are.
They want bright colors. They want upbeat music that the person's actually listen to. They want to tell funny stories and drink their favorite beer instead of just weeping in a quiet room.
Exactly. The strict rules of mourning are relaxing to allow for more authentic human expression, and the memorial bookmark tracks perfectly with that shift because the medium itself is incredibly flexible.
It's a blank canvas.
Yes. If you are having a traditional solemn requiem mass, you can design a bookmark with classic muted tones, elegant serif fonts, and formal service details.
Very traditional.
But if you are throwing a vibrant celebration of life on a beach, you can fill that same 2x6 canvas with bright tropical colors, a joke they always told, a recipe they were famous for, and a smiling, candid photo.
I love the idea of putting a recipe on there.
It's very popular. The physical object remains the same, but the emotional tone it carries adapts instantly to what the family needs.
It's the perfect vehicle for modern grief because it doesn't dictate how you should feel. It just holds whatever feeling you put into it.
And because they are so affordable and so easy to customize, they aren't just hoarded by the immediate family, they can be distributed widely.
Right, you can put 100 of them for a fraction of the cost of larger memorials.
That's a critical point in their rise in popularity. They are meant to be shared with extended family, friends, coworkers, neighbors. When you hand out 100 of these at a gathering, you are distributing the memory. You are creating a collective sense of remembrance.
I love that concept. A collective sense of remembrance. But wait, I feel like we have to address the giant glowing elephant in the room here.
The digital elephant.
Yeah. We are talking about printing out 100 pieces of cardstock, laminating them, and handing them to people in a physical room so they can share a memory. But we live in the digital age.
We do.
If I want to share a memory of someone with 100 people or 1,000 people, I can do it in 4 seconds on social media. I can set up an online memorial page. I can post a video tribute that everyone can watch on their phones.
It's instantaneous.
Exactly. Why, in an era of infinite digital storage and instant global communication, are we still so fixated on a physical piece of paper?
It is the ultimate question of our current era, not just for funerals, but for how we interact with the world. And the memorial industry has had to confront this directly. Digital memorials and online tributes absolutely have their place. They are excellent for fast, widespread communication, for gathering funds, for organizing the logistics of a funeral. But a physical item offers something that a digital format fundamentally lacks: permanence and intimacy.
It's the difference between seeing a high-definition photo of a campfire on your phone versus holding a warm ceramic mug of tea in your hands on a cold morning.
That's a great way to look at it.
Both might remind you of camping. Both convey the idea of warmth. But one is just visual information being processed by your retinas. You swipe past it. The other is a physical anchor. You can feel the heat transferring to your palms. You can feel the weight of the clay, the texture of the glaze.
That is a brilliant analogy, and it gets right to the neuroscience of touch. A digital file is inherently ephemeral. You scroll past it, it gets buried in a feed within hours.
It's gone.
You might lose the password to the cloud drive, or the hosting platform might shut down or change its business model 10 years from now. A digital memorial is always at the mercy of the platform hosting it.
Which is terrifying when you think about it.
It is. But a physical keepsake occupies physical space in our world. It has mass, it casts a shadow.
And it engages our senses in a completely different way.
Precisely. The text we looked at emphasizes that physical keepsakes offer an intimacy that digital formats cannot replicate. The intimacy of physical objects cannot be replicated by pixels because of how our nervous system works.
How so?
When you are in a moment of deep sadness or anxiety, scrolling on a smooth glass screen doesn't offer any haptic feedback. It doesn't ground you. But the physical act of holding something tangible does. Touching the laminated cardstock, feeling its rigid edges, physically turning it over in your hands to see the familiar photo that provides immediate tactile emotional comfort.
It brings you back to your body.
Yes, touch is one of our most primal senses. Holding an object actually lowers heart rates and grounds a panicking or grieving nervous system in the present moment.
There is something undeniable about the reality of a physical object. It exists. It takes up space, just like the person did.
Yeah.
You can't accidentally delete a physical bookmark with a misplaced click.
Exactly.
And when extended family members all walk away from a service holding the exact same physical object, it does something that digital likes and comments on a memorial page simply can't do. It bonds the community in the physical world. Everyone is carrying a piece of the same anchor.
Yes. Each recipient receives a physical piece of the tribute. And what's truly smart about how this industry has evolved is that they don't force families into a false binary between the past and the future.
Right.
They bridge this gap by offering both printed and digital bookmark options. They understand the sociology of the modern family. You might desperately need the physical, tactile anchor for yourself to hold in your hands when the house feels too quiet. But you also have a digital file to instantly email to a relative halfway across the world in Australia who couldn't make the flight for the service.
They are covering all the bases. They are acknowledging that modern grief requires both the grounding of the physical world and the reach of the digital world.
Exactly.
It makes the entire process incredibly seamless for someone who is going through what is arguably the worst, most chaotic week of their life. They don't have to choose between tradition and convenience. They get both.
The industry isn't just selling paper products. They are facilitating a crucial psychological process. They are providing the scaffolding for people to build their own meaning in whatever format serves them best.
So to bring this all together for you listening at home, we started out this deep dive looking at the massive stone pyramids and wondering how a tiny piece of cardstock could possibly carry the same weight of remembrance.
We covered a lot of ground.
We did. And through unpacking the psychology, we've seen that it's not just a bookmark. It is a masterclass in functional grief. It balances economic accessibility with premium dignity. It merges the everyday, mundane practicality of saving a page in a book with the profound therapeutic emotional healing of actively creating a unique tribute.
It really is a powerful tool.
And in a world where everything is disappearing into the ephemeral digital cloud, it serves as a tangible physical anchor that you can literally hold on to when the waves of grief hit. It's a small object, but it does heavy lifting.
It is a remarkable, quiet little monument. And before we go, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, building directly on the observation that these bookmarks live their lives inside our books, our Bibles, and our personal journals. Think about the profound poetry of that placement.
The poetry of where they end up.
Yes. When a memorial bookmark is placed inside a book, the story of your loved one's life is literally tucked directly into the middle of another unfolding story. Whether that's a classic sweeping novel, a history book, your own handwritten personal diary, or an ancient text of faith. By placing them there, between those pages, they aren't just a memory of the past. They become an enduring, hidden character in whatever journey you choose to read next. They travel with you through every new story you absorb.
They become a quiet companion in the story you are still writing for yourself. That is a truly beautiful way to look at it. Remember how we started this deep dive talking about massive stone monuments and carving names into granite?
Yeah.
Well, it turns out you don't need to build a pyramid to make someone immortal. You don't need to physically alter the landscape. You just need a lasting page slipped quietly into the story of everyday life. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep looking closely at the world around you, keep asking the hard questions, and keep seeking out the profound, fascinating stories hidden in the everyday objects we so often take for granted. We will catch you on the next one.